Welcome to Rise and Reinvent, the podcast that dives deep into the moments that shape our careers, our purpose, and the people we become along the way. In today's episode, we sit down with Gary Smith, a software director who turned humble beginnings, early uncertainty, and a surprise layoff into a career defined by growth, leadership, and resilience. Gary shares how discipline, mentorship, and mindset shifts helped him navigate unexpected turns, and why reinvention often begins when we decide to take control of our own story. Let's dive in. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Gary Smith to the Rise and Reinvent podcast. Gary is a software director with lots of insights to share with this audience. And so I'm excited for this conversation. Welcome, Gary, to the Rise and Reinvent podcast.
Thanks, Nicole. Great to be with you.
So, what I'd like to start with is, I know we're going to get into your amazing career journey and, all of the success you've had, but I want to start with just the beginning, the early days of Gary and where you grew up, what kind of support system you had around you, and what led you to become the person you are today.
Sure. So I grew up in the Boston area in the 80s and 90s, in a single parent household with one older sibling. Definitely not idyllic, although, single parent households were becoming more common by that time. Um, so there were some excuses to be made if I wanted to. However, if I was being honest with myself, I had enough around me from a support standpoint to make something of myself if I applied myself. I had a very loving, supportive, caring family, a lot of smart, driven friends, a lot of smart, driven family members. I watched my sister work very hard and have an opportunity to go to a very good college. That was a great example that was set for me early on. So early on, a very competitive spirit started to build in me, and I think a lot of this was fueled by participation in youth sports, um, and a lot of it was just trying to keep up with those around me and not fall behind, whether it be, with sports or with schoolwork or, just anything that I could apply a competitive nature to. So, um, as I, got a little older, college became the clear target. Um, what's interesting is this doesn't exist so much today as it did back then, but back then in the early to mid 90s, it was a very commonly held belief that you absolutely had to go to college if you wanted to be any type of success in life. And I can remember my mom, drilling that into me, as early as middle school. And, back then I didn't understand the concept of conviction, but she used to say it with unusually strong conviction, which I picked up on, and it really caused me to take that to heart. Um, so, starting in middle school, I decided, I really need to get to college. So that's going to require a lot of hard work, in school, throughout high school. And I was able to apply myself and able to achieve that goal. And that was a huge checkpoint for me, was getting to college. And then once you get there, things kind of start over. Then it's like really figuring out what you want to do with your life. And that was kind of the next chapter. But, growing up, humble beginnings, but really good support around me, really helped me get through my childhood and adolescence and, get to that next point in life.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And so now you're, at the phase of going to college. At what point in college did you start thinking about your career and what you wanted to do post-college?
I didn't even really think about it in college. And this is, really thinking in retrospect bad. Um, I did get caught up in having fun. I still maintained, very good grades. I was pursuing a degree in communication with a minor in sociology, but my plan, or so-called plan, was get my degree and then figure things out. I would not recommend that to anybody. You want to know what you're doing, want to do as much as possible going into college. Um, and it really wasn't until after college that I started sorting things out. And that created some lean years right out of college that I think a lot of people go through. But again, reflecting back on those days, if I had a better plan going into college and through college, I could have set myself up a little better for the post-college years. Um, so I really kind of had this, I'll get my degree and figure things out attitude, which, ultimately things worked out, but in retrospect, not great. And I would highly recommend anybody, at that stage of life, is really think about and figure out what you want to do, and try to be sure about it. That way you can set yourself up for some structure once the real world hits.
But you did figure it out. And so tell us about that transition
Right.
between college graduation and your first job, your first
Yeah.
prof-.
So coming out of college, I just was looking for a consistent paycheck and the ability to live on my own, even if that was with roommates. And um, I was able to do that, working in retail management. I worked at a gym for a while, which didn't pay great, but it was a full-time job, and it did allow me to achieve this first goal of independence. Um, so I was basically living paycheck to paycheck for a handful of years after college, but it was just very refreshing to be able to live, somewhat on my own, although with roommates. Um, and then, in 2007, I did catch a break and got a job with a technology company. And that allowed me to take the next minor step beyond living paycheck to paycheck. I was able to save a little bit of money, in addition to living, fairly comfortably with roommates, of course. And but I understood I had to be very disciplined, and I basically started to treat my personal finances like a business, meaning my income is X, my costs are Y. I need to make sure Y always stays less than X. And the more I can increase that gap, the more money I'll have to save or
Mhm.
invest. I understood very quickly that spending beyond my means was not going to be a good strategy. It's just going to sink you. So I learned to be very disciplined very early, kind of being on my own and not earning a ton of money in my 20s. And that really set me up well later in life. So, I did attain this job in 07 that gave me a little more financial freedom, but I maintained that fiscal discipline. And then in 2012, I got unfortunately laid off from that job, and that initially, was very, I don't want to say depressing, but anybody who's been through a layoff knows that it can hit you hard psychologically, and that certainly did. So a lot of my colleagues who got laid off with me, and I think you hear this a lot from people who get laid off, is they said, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to kind of think about things, maybe do some traveling, because they did set us up with a pretty good severance package. So a lot of people's plans was to kind of lean on that severance. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I see an opportunity here. I can actually, if I can get another job quickly, I can earn a paycheck in addition to my severance and increase my financial freedom here. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy. You know, finding a new job is never easy, but I knew if I could do that, I had a tremendous opportunity to turn negative into a positive. And
Mhm.
I was able to do that within about 3 months, leaving about 4 or 5 months left on my severance. So, and my new job actually paid substantially more than my old job. So all of a sudden, this what looked like a huge negative, losing my job, was all of a sudden a great positive. It forced me to kind of look outside the box and get a new job. Um, and all of a sudden, I had this nice chunk of financial freedom of getting that paycheck with my severance package. So again, I maintained my financial discipline. I didn't spend my extra money. I saved it, trying to take a long view. Um, and then years down the road, as I continue to work, all those savings that have been, compounding interest, um, that's all of a sudden my money for a down payment on a house. So, you know, it's a combination of working hard, catching breaks, and being disciplined with your money. Um, and all those things kind of came together over a 5 to 10 year period in my 20s and early 30s. And that created a major breakthrough for me. And I'm still working for that same company, very happy there. Um, and yeah, that's kind of led me more or less to where I am today.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, you talked about your journey and you talked about some pivots and changes you made, but if you can reflect on a pivotal moment that really sparked reinvention, what did you have to change for that reinvention to happen?
Okay. So I would say this happens um, happened at numerous times throughout my journey. One time was certainly when I did move into the technology field in 2007. Um, it was brand new to me. And I could have said, no, I know nothing about this. Um, but the financial, um, I need to start over here. Um, so this has happened, numerous times throughout my career. I think 2007, like I mentioned, when I got a job in the technology field, one of the first breaks I got that gave me some financial freedom. Um, I had to kind of learn technology. It was, going to be a brand new industry to me, and there was a lot of learning to be done. And instead of shying away from that, I kind of embraced it and jumped in with 2 feet. And switching industries was a major pivot for me, but a good one because um, that gave me some experience in technology and uh, was a major factor in getting my uh, current job at my company now after I got laid off. Had I not had that experience, I certainly would not have continued down this career path. And then another major one was with my current company, understanding that I had the capability and desire to be a leader as opposed to an individual contributor.
Mhm.
Um, Leadership is not an easy thing to do. Being responsible for a group and a team, is frustrating to a lot of people. But I focused in on that, got better at it, practiced, trained, and overcame kind of the frustrations that I think a lot of people endure when they try to get into leadership. And that was a major pivot for me because that allowed me to become a manager and then now a director. So um, uh, seeing myself as an individual contributor and then envisioning a future as a leader and then making that happen was a huge pivot. And, you know, one that if I didn't make, um, I would not be anywhere close to where I am now.
What type of learning and support did you have during that transition process? And how did you overcome, maybe the fear of making that transition?
Right. So I'm very lucky in that my company provides a lot of training and resources for this. And I understand that's a rare thing. Um, so one piece of advice for anybody working for a company, if they provide training, resources, enablements, really for anything, take full advantage because
Hmm.
that stuff is invaluable and you won't find it with every company.
Right.
So I had also had great mentors. I could think of numerous managers and directors that kind of helped me along the way. And they didn't have to help me. Of course, they were very, very busy with their professional and personal lives. Um, and I don't know if I'd go as far to say they took me under their wing, but you know, I combined good observation skills with advice that they gave me along the way and did my best to apply that. And I still apply a lot of the practices that I observed from them to this day. Um, and along with, like I said, company provided resources and training. They have a very good manager training program that, I went through and really took to heart. And then, again, a lot of that stuff I still apply today. But a lot of it is experience. You're dealing with people, a lot of people every single day, different personalities, and you have to get better with the soft skills, of course, and that takes practice. You can't really read that in a book and learn it in a book. So, like most things in life, it's a combination of factors that's if you go in with a positive, constructive mindset every day and practice, learn, like you will get better over time. So can't pinpoint one thing there. Management is can be a messy, lumpy learning process, but as long as you stick to it, um, you can get through it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. So, what is one unexpected lesson in your career journey, and what did it teach you?
Back in 2012, when I got laid off, certainly, I learned the lesson that even if you're a high performer, and you're loyal, in the workplace, you can certainly get caught up in a numbers game and be kind of discarded, regardless of how loyal or hardworking or high performing you are. And that's just a reality in the business world, unfortunately. Um, so that taught me resilience, short memory very quickly. So, um, you know, everybody knows the phrase life isn't fair.
Mhm.
In the business world, you can learn that in a very real way. And I certainly did, getting laid off, back then. So certainly, that was a hard lesson to learn, but an important one to learn because, you know, God forbid it happened again, I would be even that much more prepared to deal with it from a psychological, professional standpoint. So, um, very hard lesson to learn, but certainly a useful one. And you can only prepare yourself for it before it happens so much. You can only brace yourself so much, but the better you can understand that things are going to happen to you that aren't fair and completely out of your control, the better you'll be to deal with it. And you want to be ready for that. You don't think it's going to happen to you until it does. And when
Yeah.
it does, you want to have all your ducks in a row to be able to act. Um, as soon as possible, if that's what you wish to do, you know. Like I said, a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people took the attitude of, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to take a vacation, I'm going to figure out what I want to do with my life. And that that's all fine for them. And I completely understand that standpoint, but it just wasn't me. And for me, the mindset I took of getting back on my feet immediately really paid off. So um, yeah, I think I'm really understanding the unfairness of the world sometimes, and how that can hit anybody. What was a very important and tough lesson to learn.
That's a great lesson because it's a very common lesson. As a career coach, what I've found is that oftentimes, people, especially when you're happy in your role, you don't think about 3 to 5 years from now where I will be and what steps I need to take just in case. What's your plan B, right?
Mhm.
um, and so it's always good to keep your resume updated. It's always good to keep your LinkedIn and your networking and your connections up to date. And so thank you for sharing that because it is a important life lesson. Um, what leadership lesson did you have to learn the hard way?
That you can't make everybody work the way you do. Um, Everybody's personality and work style is different. Um, and everybody can be productive in their own way. You just have to get to know people, understand their work habits, understand what makes them tick, and get to a point where you can be as hands off as you can while maintaining productivity.
Mm,
Because happy people, are in general are productive people, and I think my company understands that very well, and it's a mentality I try to transmit down to my teams. I'm not here to micromanage. Um, I'm not here to try to make life miserable to make you more productive. I want you to be happy and productive. So you let me know how I can do that for you, and I will accommodate you. So, um, I think a lot of new managers try to be very headstrong, kind of taking this boss mentality. Um, and most, in my experience, learned very quickly that you want to be as unboss-like as possible because you're going to rub people the wrong way. You don't want to come across as an authority figure that wields a heavy stick. You want to let people be themselves, and if the more you let people be themselves, as long as they're doing the right things from a work standpoint, that will yield the most productivity. So um, yeah, so it's really about getting out of this boss mentality and into this kind of a facilitator mentality. It's like, you're not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to show you what could make you successful and mold that to your personality so you can be happy at the same time.
absolutely. And so, yeah, one of the terms that I've heard is like servant leadership, right? I'm leading in service to you, employee, because you're the one that's going to be primarily driving the ship. And so, how can I empower you to lead? And then I am your, problem solver. I can help you get the funding. I can help you overcome the speed bumps and the hurdles, right? And so I can drive you. And to me, that is a true definition of servant leadership. Leadership in service of your team, but also leadership in service of the end customer
Right.
for the business. Imagine that you're at the start of a major transition in your career or your life, whether it's moving, new job, promotion. What advice would you give to your younger self about that transition?
make as many friends as you possibly can as you encounter in this transition, whether it be, in work, or, if you're moving to a new neighborhood or something like that. Be open, um, and try to build a network as soon as you can, wherever you are and whatever the situation may be. And try to reserve resources initially, because you don't know, although you may have confidence, you don't know if this transition is going to work. So what if I need to pivot shortly after I
Mm.
make this transition? Will I be ready to do that? So I'm always trying to think, a few steps ahead, understanding that, there's a best case scenario, there's an okay scenario, and there's a worst case scenario. Am I ready for all three of those? And being ready for the worst case scenario is going to probably require me to reserve some resources, whether that be financially or whatever else. And um, so you want to kind of take a conservative mindset when it comes to resource expenditure, and yeah, find out quickly, you know, what can help you, who can help you, um, who can you help, and what situations can you improve immediately. So in the situation of starting like a new job, where can you have an impact right away? Um, Show you can make an impact right away and act on it. Um, and also come up with some longer term goals, and try to become visible. And that also ties into kind of building a network, is you want to be visible right away, and make as many people as possible know that you can make an impact, and you demonstrate that. Um, so there's a short, medium, and a long-term view. You know, the short-term view is going to be the most action-oriented. This is the building the network and having an impact right away. The medium-term view is, how can I have an impact, weeks and months from now? What longer-term projects? And again, this is in the context of starting a new job. And then the longer-term view is, what if this doesn't work out? Am I going to be ready to search for a new job? Am I going to be ready to potentially move? Do I have the resources to do so? Um, so you want to kind of map out those three kind of time periods. Um, and they all tie into like a best, medium, and a worst case scenario. And it's all about readiness, basically.
Yep, understood. Okay, so you mentioned networking and, building your network to ensure. In what ways, excuse me, in what ways has your network supported your journey and your growth?
Oh, it's been tremendous, and I give a lot of credit to, like I mentioned before, managers, directors, and even beyond, that have taken a genuine interest in my career. I've always kind of understood, like, and I think everybody should understand, that you yourself are the most responsible for your own career and your success. Um, Most things are not going to be handed to you, but you will get olive branches from time to time. You will get great advice, and you will get mentorship from time to time along the way. Full advantage of all those things. Also understanding that your career advancement's likely going to be on you. You're going to have to, kind of openly make it known that you want advancement. Ask your managers or mentors, what do I need to do to get to the next level? But your network is certainly very important. Um, you can see, you can kind of, you know, see what your colleagues are doing. What are they doing that's working? Get to know them. They can kind of become like inadvertent mentors, or at least peers that will help you with your career by giving you some advice. But I think by far the most important are your managers and your kind of superiors, who um, have a lot of say in your career advancements, and know the tools and advice to give you that will help you achieve your goals should you have them. So don't be shy about talking to your manager about what you want to do with your career and asking them the exact steps that you need to take to get there. And any good manager should help you achieve those steps and get to where you want to go, assuming you're able and willing to complete them. In a lot of cases, it's as simple as that. A lot of people will talk about, LinkedIn, social networks, but usually the answers are right in front of us. It's your manager, and what they can do to help you.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think it also depends on the company culture. Because in the company cultures I was in, your manager was not enough. And you definitely had to have an external network in case something changed, And so I think what you've explained is definitely an important part, but also expanding your network beyond internal, maybe within industry or with, other different types of cohorts is also very valuable along that journey. Um, what would you say has been your biggest compromise in life and career?
I think in my career, the biggest compromise has been, even though I've become very interested in my field of work, um, as I've mentioned a few times, I kind of let the journey dictate me as opposed to the other way around. And, I talked about this as a regret from my younger self,
Mhm.
going back to my college days, is um, this go with the flow attitude that I had, where if I could go back, I would completely redo it. So, obviously, it's worked out for me. I, found an industry I'm very interested in and have been able to grow in. Um, but I've always had a sense of life took me here as opposed to me grabbing life by the horns and doing something early on that I was very interested in, pursuing that, building a career in that, like I see a lot of people do. So I think, yeah, it's really how my career has dictated me as opposed to the other way around. And it's a minor gripe because, again, I'm very happy
Yeah.
where I am. But the way it happened, um, looking back, I should have been more in control of things. Um, the way
Okay,
I.
that's fair. Well, I'll say it's never too late
Yeah, yeah.
to pivot and reinvent and, expand your network externally. My last question is just exactly that. Like, as you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what does the success look like for you? What is the long-term goal?
Right, so I'd still love to grow within my company. I still think I have substantial room to grow. Um, um, you know, I don't want to stay stagnant. I haven't stayed stagnant up till now. It's not something I'm interested in. So I want to improve my skills and improve my overall effectiveness, personal, professional effectiveness. Continue to raise and grow my family, um, and just continue to become a more well-rounded person in general. And that obviously goes beyond work. There's like I said, family, big personal component to that. So success to me is partly financial, but it's also partly uh, personal growth. Becoming a better person at home, better person at work. Um, wherever life takes me, make sure I'm getting better um, in whatever situation I get put in. So, probably 10 years ago, I would have equated success more to to money, and I've definitely evolved from there. But also keeping in mind that financial considerations are very important also. There's no doubt about that. But um, for me now, it's about just becoming a more well-rounded person, um, in and outside of work.
Well, Gary, I really appreciate you sharing your story today. Thank you for being so insightful and for sharing all the details and giving the advice. The listeners will really appreciate it as well. And I wish you continued success. And thanks again.
Thanks, Nicole. Pleasure being with you.